the 17th. We just went over some of the particulars for today's class. We're going to get started. Welcome back. I hope you guys are having fun so far. I know it's been the summer's been nice and good to us so far, except the floods and all the power outages we had. Yesterday, I had no power at my house for a while. My house had a flood, a lot of water. So it was a little bit of a chaotic experience. But it was worse. Some people had it worse. Where Sheila lives, she had no power either. We all live in the Etobicoke area, the south end. So I don't know if you guys saw the news, but some cars were stuck with the water right up to the rooftops. So it could have been worse, right? It's you know, some of these times, sometimes these things happen, so we got to deal with it. Either way. Right. So as I mentioned earlier, we're gonna continue using Figma from going forward. We're done with XD. That was the last assignment you had from that you handed in last week, and we're gonna focus on the website elements first. I want you to be able to do a website prototype in XD all on your own, and even that maybe converting into an app if you wish to. But that's just creating another artboard with other settings, which I think the next project, which is the big one, the group assignment, it's gonna teach you how to do that as well. So we're gonna learn how to create all these different media types of interactive prototypes. I think we did the tablet from the last assignment you did in XD. We're going to do a website in Figma, like a prototype of a website. And then you're going to do a mobile app in XD as well, in Figma as well. All right. I don't know if you have access to this file, but we started it. I know I had a small group last week. I had only, I think, 4 people showed up. So I'd like to just quickly recap where we left off so you don't get stranded or lost in the process. We started with the whole prototype of a desktop layout. So this was measured to be, and to check, I mean, you have to basically click on the top left corner here, whether you're making this from scratch or you're building, working with a given template, it's still something you have to get familiar with the interface. So I think we use like a MacBook Air or a desktop prototype frame. Okay. So basically, if you're doing this from scratch, watch last week's video because this is all pre-recorded and stuff. But just to quickly give you a reference point, this is a new document right now. Okay, so I have like nothing here. So if you're starting like from scratch, basically, you have to remember one thing. Figma is all based on the frame tool. The frame tool serves as a multifunctional tool and element that you can use to create not just pages, but interactive elements and groups of different things as well. So if you just press F for the frame tool, that's how you can get started. I use the section sometimes to just organize. Maybe today I'm going to incorporate it with some interactive elements. And the slice tools, I rarely use it, but some people use it to just extract certain preview files. It's like a screen grab tool for your UI kit. So you can use that for your own liking, but more or less, the most important one out of all these is the frame tool. So remember that, F for frame. So simply we just went to draw a frame like this one, and we can specify what size we want it the frame to be on the right side here. So the right side is your properties. At the top is your tools, and all the other stuff's on the left, like your components, layers, and assets, and things like that. So it takes some while to get used to the application if you haven't used it before. But of course, just like anything else, you have to invest time and you have to be a little more dedicated and play with it, right? You'll figure it out. One more way to do this, if you click on the frame tool, before you even draw a box, you can simply go here and select a size that's given to you. So if I just click on this, it's going to do the same thing. Okay. So you can either go click and click like this thing. You can pick from here what you want, or you can just draw anything and then decide to change it from here. It takes a while to get used to from switching from XD to Figma, especially this feature here. The biggest, most recognizable difference is this tool. There's no frame tool in XD. There's an artboard tool, and there's other tools to create frame-like attributes. But far as creating artboards, the frame tool is what it does for both. Okay, so we created this website based on this dimension here. Now, what's good for these kind of things? You go with the current trend. If you're using like a mobile app, you can go with the most modern sizes, which are here. If you're using the most modern desktop sizes, they're all listed here as well, like the MacBook Air, MacBook Pro 14, 16. You can't go wrong with any one of these. They will work. The whole point of a prototype is to show how the product will work. So if you pick any one of these, I think you should be okay. I think I kept it safe, and I used the desktop option here. And that's why we were able to do this. Okay. All right. So furthermore, then we ended up creating our very infamous column grid for designing any type of applications or websites. So for that, we went to this layout grid option. And so the grid, we specified to use columns. So that's how we kind of set it up. And the rule was 12 because 12 is the biggest common denominator. You can put 4, 3, 2, a lot of numbers go into 12. So we just type number 12, and we're able to get a nice 12 column um, column. I was gonna say guide layout, right? And then you can also do the gutters, which is 20 pixels, and the actual margins. Okay, and the margins are basically, the space between the edges. You can type maybe the 50 pixels here, and that's how you can control this whole thing. So I did this last video, and I wanted to make sure I continually repeat some of these things like a good review, because the fundamental is very important. If I just start at the middle of something, I might lose some of your interest and focus. So just remember, once you start this, the rest of it is pretty easy. You just have to simply build on this and continue with your building blocks. You can use placement, things like rectangles, objects, and that's how we build this whole thing. So I'm not going to continue this further because we did end up with this. Okay. And I'll simply do a quick breakdown of how we got there, but this was a lot. That was the starting point. All right. And we gave it a name, of course. The name of the top left corner was the basic prototype of the desktop. So this was very simple. We made a portfolio desktop website. You can make any type of website if you wish. One thing I noticed, we have the buttons grouped here in the same folder. This was like a text box. And the columns, we changed the default color to like a see-through transparent. I believe it's like an opaque white color. If you notice here, the difference, it's the same thing. Or maybe it's like that pinkish color. But what I didn't show you in the example here was we put 20% opacity. So your 12 column auto layout was 20%. Because if I make it 100%, it's hard to work with that design, right? You see, you can't see anything this way. So it's important that you keep your details of your transparency to a small amount. So 20% is a lot better than using 20%. And when you're all done, what you can do after is just basically disable this grid altogether. Okay? And how do you do that? There's a visible tool here, on and off. So you can hide and show all these columns. So bear in mind, all this stuff happens here. It's very articulate, small, and detailed. So you have to really kind of be, focused and pay attention to the small details, because it's easy to get lost and confused and click something the wrong way to make this not work. All right. So once we set this up, we simply went to build some of the social media icons, and we got some vector files. These are all like rectangular shapes. And if you go to layers, you can see everything here. So the whole structure is laid up into layers. Okay. I think I locked. Locking layers helps preventing you to select the wrong things. Like I was trying to select that blue box and I remembered I locked it, so I couldn't really select it properly. So if you look very closely here, the rectangles two here are locked. This one and that one. Okay. So that makes up for my nav bar with my buttons and whatever you want to put up there to make it like a website. Um, to select those, you have to obviously unlock them. As you can see, these are just simple rectangular tools that we used. Okay. So based on this whole layout structure, we made this would be like an image carousel of your portfolio, perhaps. This is some of your other portfolio pieces that you might want to showcase. Could be, could be a blog, an article, text, anything that you want to put on the website. Could be a product, could be an Amazon website, right? Then this could be another type of graphic or image or component or placement holder for something else. And down here's your footer, okay? So I'm not going to go and do all these little details because this will be a 6-hour class, but I'm trusting you that doing your HTML class and other stuff, you can populate these areas and make it happen. But I will show you how to do that in a smaller scale. So this way you have some guidance. So here we started putting images and content. So I want to be really more articulate and detail into some of the other placement methods because some of you obviously don't know how to do that, right? So let's start with the top here, and then we'll do some interactive stuff as well. If you notice, I made some button sections over here at the top. So this is how you can make your website more interactive. Uh, Things like rollovers to change the colors when you roll over the mouse. For the website desktops, I think this is necessary. For the mobile apps, no. That's a different way to do interactive stuff. We can do things like clicks, drags, switches, the sliders, that kind of stuff. Okay. But because it's a website, we're just going to keep the rollovers and perhaps maybe some of the gallery settings as well. Okay, so this is why this section is here called buttons. All right, let's see how we did this. So here we have a simple rectangle that we carried over from here. And by the way, how did I copy this whole page to the other side? So if I click on the whole page like this, and I press Command D or Control D, that makes a duplicate of the website, okay? Or the page or the artboard or the frame in this case. And then once the duplicate is there, you can edit and make the changes necessary. So it's very easy once you get started, right? Once you get the whole thing set up and started, it's easy to make the changes afterwards. And that's how we made a duplicate. And then we went in there and made all these changes. How did I place this image in there? Several ways to place images. You can go to, this is your assets tab here. Oh, there we go. From the rectangle tool, if you click on it, on the arrow, you can not only insert objects, but place images or videos on the bottom. So if you were to do just that by itself, you can go ahead then and select some of the sources in your computer or on your desktop. In this case, I'll go to my Humber folder. I'll go to my class number 910. I think we use Pexels for a website. I would suggest you download your sources first. If it's your portfolio, you don't have to download anything. Just optimize your images accordingly. So that you would use Photoshop or other programs if you have to export some of these graphics. But just pretty much to bring things in, it's quite simple. Look, it's like more like InDesign. It's going to zoom out quickly, right? So I'm just holding this ready to place my image. If I click once, it's going to give me the actual size. But if I was to click and drag the mouse, it's going to give me whatever size I want it to be. Okay. And yes, this resizes with proportions. So you can literally crop the picture and you get the best out of this whole thing. But what we did here, though, is we used the rectangle option to replace it as opposed to this background here that I had, this fuchsia background, I placed an image instead. So let's use the same type of example to this one, and we'll put some content as well this time. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this little box right here, and I'm going to click on the fill area on the right. Okay, this is going to be the right side. And here you have four options. You go fill, gradient, solid color, gradient, image, or video. This is where you can replace things and put stuff wherever you like. Obviously, we went to the image tab and we chose an image that goes into that placeholder. Okay, so it's all there for you. I prefer this method because you're working from a wireframe perspective. And I'll show you some of these templates and stuff here that they have because it's easier when you go ahead and let's say you do a wireframe with just a bunch of boxes, and later you fill those boxes with placeholder images and stuff. All your planning, all your sizing, everything is done. All you have to do is fill up the content. So today I'm gonna fill up the content on this page here and show you all the little details and important things that along the way that'll help you kind of build this better and have like a nice presentable interface. And we'll do like a UI kit / layout with this, okay? I just need some image sources to get started here. I'm going to quickly go and download some images right now with maybe Unsplash and stuff and get a good layout. Unsplash. Of course, you can use any source websites like Pixabay, Pexels, and Unsplash, all the free resources. I'm going to get this image right here, downloaded. I'm just going to save it from here. So I'm going to go to the desktop and make a quick library for myself. This will be Unsplash Pix. Okay. There's one. There's another one. Just right click, save image as. These are small resolution files. If you do want larger files to download, you have to log in, make an account, and hit the download tab. So you could get the larger images. Okay. Okay. There's a vertical image. I've got this one here. Different proportions do different things. Photoshop would be also a great way for you to resize all your images. Okay, so don't forget to use Photoshop from time to time when you need to. Right? Let's get a few more and we're should be good to go there. I got 5 so far. We'll get the 6th one, then we're good. All right. So if it's your portfolio pieces, what would you do? You can optimize them from Photoshop, okay? Open them up individually if you have to, make like a container or one size. Then you can export them for web, okay? Save for web, and you can use a JPEG or a PNG format. I would use a JPEG format for most of my images or pictorial graphics, and I would use a PNG for my more solid um, color graphic type of illustrations and artwork that you might have. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So now that I have some images stored, I can go back here and upgrade or populate the rest of my prototype here. Okay, so here I have this rectangle placeholder. I just don't want to put an image everywhere, like image, image, image. Let's make it more like a website kind of looking prototype. So I'm going to use this area as my placement holder, but that doesn't mean the whole thing's going to be an image. It might be part of it will be an image. Part of it might be a text. I might even have a button, and that button is going to go towards like a link for another website. Okay, so all this will be inserted into this area. So in order for me to do that, I'm just going to leave the fill for now and change it afterwards. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and use this area as my guide. Now, the whole time I'm doing this, I'm in not in prototype, but I'm in design mode. Okay. A lot of more advanced Figma designers prefer to do this in a frame itself. So you can put a frame inside a frame. And the whole point of that is to create an auto layout. The auto layout is how you can actually create more dynamic layout constraints. So when you do resize the box, things align nicely and properly. So maybe I'll show you how to do that as well, because that's important. So you understand some more advanced techniques as we go forward. Okay. The more and more I look at this Figma community, I'm really impressed because they really build it every day. There's new stuff that comes out. So you always have to be on top of it, right? So once you get into the basics and you learn the main principles, it's easy to join these communities and learn more about the software. Okay. So let's, for example, use this one here. I'm gonna convert this into, let me just see here. There's another option to do what's called a frame selection. When you frame a selection, it converts this into an actual frame. Okay. But before I get into that complicated stuff, I want to keep it simple first, just to show you how the layout works. I'm going to use it as just a variable or just a simple element here. So let's use the tools that are given to us, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and maybe place an image for now. Okay. Oh, I can't AVIF files. Oops, I don't think they're supported. So quickly, if I can convert them here, Photoshop here. For now, I'll just do a screen capture of the images, and I can use them this way. So this is obviously not recommended, okay? So try to get the real sources. You're going to use your portfolio images. You're going to have like JPEGs, PNGs, all these different assets that you're going to be using, okay? So we're going to go use another one here. Another one over here. All right, I think that'll do the trick. Alrighty. Does drag and drop work? Yes, you can drag and drop stuff in here, but be careful because if you drag it on top of an item, like if you drag it inside one of these things, it might get caught up into that layer or that particular object. So it's kind of like if I drag it here, this image becomes part of this artboard. If I drag it over here, it becomes in this artboard, okay? And to quickly kind of know where everything is, the best way to tell is by looking at your artboard. So you can see here, when you select it, it shows you where it's located on the left side, okay? So do pay attention to the placements because it's important. You don't want to have something in the wrong area and then it won't work, okay? Let's go ahead and just utilize this example here. do the right. Now, traditionally, you can select multiple objects like this. Of course, you can use the align tools over here, just like the good old traditional layout software. Perhaps InDesign or Illustrator, you can do things like center them. You can do left align, center align, right? Then you can also put some other attributes and elements to make the details work. So I would like zoom in here, maybe put on some text as well. Just remember how text is treated into Figma. It's different than XD because it doesn't create necessarily a text field, and it works with text boxes only. So if I was to use the text tool right now, I simply just go and click over here. I mean, you can type some content, but then when you hit return, it just becomes like a normal character. Okay, so that's how you can utilize your type tool. Okay. Um, I like to use plugins when it gets to more advanced type of attributes and features. Plugins let you fill in the content. Like, I don't know if you noticed, you have the lower placement holder text in InDesign. You also have lorem ipsum in Figma, for example, if you use plugins. So if I go over here, if I go to plugins, there's a big community that you can download free stuff. This will help you enhance your designs better. I know there's a lot more things too, like icon designer for help you design icons, some of the other elements that you need. So you can really get some cool AI image generator. Now with Chat GPT, they got all kinds of plugins for AI integrated stuff. So the plugins is a huge thing. Okay, I can do a whole lesson on plugins, but that's just gonna waste time because plugins just they're all different, right? It's like little apps or widgets. Yeah. Can you access it, by the way? Can you show me if you can? I know my, huh? What's wrong? Hmm. I think so, yeah. Right. Um, Widgets are more community-based integrated elements that you can use with your community. Like if using like a group setting, which we're gonna maybe look at later on, because you might work with groups and have some fun with that. But plugins is where most of the stuff is at. So remember, components. Components is when we start making some more advanced features like buttons, which today I'm going to show you how to make buttons as well. Some interactive stuff, how to connect the pages and these kind of things. And when you have components, you can serve them as multiple use type of elements. Okay, so they're more than just buttons. They can do like more visual things as well. So the plugins is, let me just quickly show you here. Look, lorem ipsum is right here actually. So can you see if you can find lorem ipsum right now? Right. So this little plugin here will ask me, well, what are you trying to do? Well, I'm going to say, I'm going to try to generate one sentence, okay? Um, Fake data. You can do fake data. So you can like make up a person, like a user persona, and it'll make up a person for you. Like um, Jamie Ireland, Robble, at Jamie Ireland, gender, phone number, date of birth. And that's kind of pretty much how it's gonna come up. But I'm gonna stick with lorem ipsum. One sentence, I'll do generate. Okay. So what it did here is created a lorem ipsum content. I'm going to make this smaller using my shortcuts here, Command Shift smaller than. Okay, and I'm going to use the lorem ipsum plugin again. This time I'm going to just I put one sentence. Maybe I'll put like several sentences, like 3. You can see how it filled up some of my sentences for me. So it's a little more better than just having nothing there. Okay. Some of the other things you can do with the plugins, and I'll be honest with you, I play with plugins a lot with XD. With Figma, a little bit, not as much as I would like to, but I'm sure if you just dive into it and you can try different things, it's more like exploring filters in Photoshop, let's say. There's so many things and tedious little settings and stuff to go through. But just to show you, I mean, it's all here, right? You can just type in different things. Um, Look at this, Figma to HTML, PX code. That's something some of you asked me. Can you make a website from Figma? I think it's getting to a point where one day you will be able to. I don't see why not. You can make a whole prototype in Figma and just make it into HTML. How cool would that be? Right? And then, but again, remember I told some of you, don't think that's an escape for you to learn any HTML. Learning HTML is important because it makes you that much more, helpful with the design community and a, more capable designer. Because at the back end, you have to know a little bit of HTML. Not a little bit. I mean, intermediate level is expected, especially nowadays, right? Even with WordPress and other type of web developers or web design platforms, HTML is essential to customizing your websites. So you can't get away from it. Stick to learning that stuff and it'll come nicely along, okay? Let's see what else is here. We have I just typed in icon, okay, just to kind of show you. Open icon, set by icon deck, icon 8. There's all these different icon plugins. So I'm going to try one of them for you. And here's the icon plugin that I'm running here. So I'm going to hit run. Remember before I asked you not to waste your time drawing little pictures of a house or a little picture of a lake or something like that? Get your stuff online. I don't mind if you help yourself, okay? So instead of looking at websites, why don't you use the plugin community in Figma to look for stuff like this? So I'm going to look for maybe a simple little tab or a button or something. I'm going to click on here. I'll use this like thing, okay? Yeah, and look at this. It gave me an actual vector file of an icon, okay? And yes, you can control it, more or less. I can then grab this one too. Added two icons, one inside the other. You can mix and match. And just like using a vector program such as Illustrator, you can basically grab this. I'm going to right click. I'm going to drag this on top of that icon here, okay? I change the color of it to, let's say, red or blue, I should say. Move this over a bit. And because I arranged this to be in the front and this to be in the back, you can see how my layer arrangement here controls all that stuff. So you can say, so icon thumb up, right? Icon media record. This is a record button. I could have drawn a circle, but I ended up using a record button vector file just to show you how flexible this can be. And then if I do want to select both of them, well, yeah, here's the good thing too. You can change the color, okay? So you see this, you can change the colors just by using the attributes on the right, okay? Let's see if I can do, yeah, these are icons. So you have to like break them up to do some additional stuff. But if I wanted to do something a little more extra, just to show you and test its capabilities, there's an option called flatten. I don't know if you're familiar with Illustrator when you do expand. When you expand an object in Illustrator, it has all these vector attributes that come out from the raw form. This is now, it's like a symbol that you borrowed from a plugin. So in order for you to make this a workable asset, like I already did, but even beyond that, you have to flatten the actual icon. So if I flatten it, right now it became like a vector file. Okay. What that means is right now I can do a lot more vector stuff with it. Okay. Which means I can go ahead and let me just see if I can do this here. I'm gonna delete the circle and delete this like icon because I want to really show you how you can utilize these tools to your advantage. I'm going to use an elliptical tool this time. Keep it simple. Here I have a circle and a like icon. If I select both of these, okay, and go up here and do what's called subtract selection or do one of these other ones here, you can really get the Illustrator effects to work. I wonder if I got this one. I think it's right underneath it. Ah, there we go. It worked. I literally it didn't work for a second. Let me show you what happened. I had the vector file down here, right? So I literally had to line it up top of each other. So I had to have this on top of that directly here for the Pathfinder to work in Figma. Unlike Illustrator, it's a little more finicky when it comes to layer orientation. So make sure one is in front of the other like you normally would. That's why I use different colors. I use blue and gray so I can identify that, hey, this is in front of that. Because obviously if the ellipse was on top, you won't see the button, right? So make sure this is aligned properly. And then of course you center it. I would center the two. I would always center them before I break them apart. So I would go up here and go middle, center. And lastly, I'm going to select both of them, go up here and do what's called subtract selection. It's like punching a hole through the graphic. So it's like a very simple Pathfinder trick that you can do in Figma, or that you can borrow from Illustrator. All right, some of the other stuff we can do, of course. Maybe I can put this like button up here. We'll create a little button. Now, buttons are very simple to do. It just takes a matter of paying attention to detail. I'm going to use an object again, very simple. Perhaps a rectangle, okay? If I draw a little rectangle here, like this, okay? And this could be a link to the actual post. If you don't zoom in enough, you won't see the option to round the corners. Well, look what happens when you zoom in. Now you have these little circles here to round the edges of the rectangle. So just be mindful of when you zoom in, you can get more details to be accessible. Another way to round corners and basic things like that, which I find quite popular when you make buttons and stuff on websites, even apps for that matter, is over here. This is called your corner radius. Okay. And you can make it all one number. I'll go with 8. Now I want to maybe have more control of this feature. So if you're looking for more things, let's say I want to round the opposite corners and not these two corners. Then you can we'll do what's called an expansion. If you expand this little attribute here, you open this up here, you can then control different coordinates, different radius options from the object. So by simply doing this, now you have all 4 available. So for example, I would like to do the top left corner at 0. I would like to do the top right corner at 12. And I would do the bottom left corner also at 12. and I would like to do the opposite bottom right corner at 0. Not to get too technical, but I just made a graphic like this, okay? So you can actually go ahead and do all that stuff. All right, so all this is in the settings on the tools when you do these simple things. All right. So this will be perhaps the button, maybe a little too fancy for a button, but we're going to go with it anyways. So I'll just put a quick little text and thing in here with the type tool. Oh, okay. A little bit of a problem because when you click on the type tool and you click on top of a text box, just like any other software, it thinks you want to add more text to the text box. So be careful if you want to make a separate little text attribute separately and then move that on top of the button. So basically you might want to move this somewhere else and make it separate and dump it in there. But I will get into that in a moment when I show you how to make some of the more advanced button configurations. But for now, just so you're aware of all these not to do or to do things, and the best way to learn this is when you actually do it yourself, right? So you can clearly see how this text box is interfering with this button, okay? So that's why it's important that you kind of either move it here, move it back. It's at the front, okay? This is the lorem ipsum. This is the button here. So it's all a matter of how you organize your graphics. So now that I'm mindful of that, I'm going to move it slightly here and maybe put a text field. And I'll call this button link, okay? And you can make it whatever you want. And simply click and drag and put it in the right spot. Okay. Don't be afraid to group buttons and things either. So if I have these two things selected here, I can just right click and hit group. Like I want to really cover all the main basic intermediate uses of the software. Because when I start getting to the advanced stuff, you might misinterpret or confuse the two and always think, oh, I have to do it this way. You don't have to do anything the way you think it has to be done. There's many ways of doing something. So once you get the experience with like the software, like anything else, you become the author, you become the creator, you design things the way it works with you. Now, of course, there's guidelines you got to follow and rules and to get things done properly, but there's so many ways to do one thing, basically. Just like Photoshop, just like Illustrator, just like InDesign, Figma is no exception. Okay, so just like making little buttons here, you can go from doing it this way, that way, and the other way. Okay, so I'm going to keep it simple for now. And after that, I'll show you another example of a different approach, okay? So let's just group it for in this case. So it's a group selection, and this is a button link right now, okay? So I was detailing this portion to create like a like button, um, an image with some content, and that could be some of the attributes that you're going to put in here. And of course, you can group all this as well to become one group also. Okay, so you're going to right click, group it, or you can also frame the selection and do some more advanced stuff with it as well. All right. When you open this plugin, you can basically search for anything. Like let's say type in Instagram. Oh, no Instagram? Results. Okay, so there is some stuff you can get, but it's pretty generic with some of these icons stuff. Maybe it's limited, right, as well. Okay, but nonetheless, you click on the your resources tab. Remember this. So just quickly, let's do a whole overview here. This is your main Figma operations button. This is how you like access your file menu, edit, save, this little Figma icon. See, there's your file, object, text, arrange. Okay. From here, it's the same thing. Look, these menus is just another quick orientation to have them located here. So it's a duplicate. Okay. Just like I told you earlier, there's many ways to do one thing. This is your main selection tool, the move tool. And yes, there's a scale tool as well, because nothing more frustrating than trying to scale something individually one by one. Like, let's say if I was to grab this whole thing here, if I want to make this whole thing smaller, right? Let me just change the color of this box here. It's kind of, right? So if I want to resize this, you ready? See what's happening? It's resizing, but not really. It's doing this. It's kind of messing everything up here. Okay, so you can't really do the average scalability type of function with this program unless you do it this way. Okay, you select the whole thing. Okay, and from here you select the scale tool. K for scale. Doesn't make sense, I know, but that's just how they did it. So if you go to the scale tool, okay, you can then resize everything as you see it. You see that? It doesn't affect the layout at all. So do use that to your advantage if you need to scale things back and forth. Okay. I think this like icon, I misplaced it. That's why it wasn't resizing with everything. It's here. It's not over here. So this should be here right now. This is outside of my wireframe. My wireframe is this here. This button that I was messing around with earlier to show you how to do an Illustrator extraction, it's outside. So I have to bring this in here to be part of the family. Right now it doesn't belong there, right? That's why when I was doing this, when I was doing the resize, if I show you again, look at this, it doesn't work because it doesn't belong in that set. So again, when that happens to you, just analyze your layer orientation and figure out what doesn't belong where. So in this case, I'm going to bring this icon and move it exactly here. Okay. So now it's in the right place. And this group that I made, I'll call it button group. So now watch what happens. If I select the whole thing and I do select the scale tool, right, and I resize it, look, it's all resizing, right? No problem, because it belongs in the same family. All right, let's do a quick variation on the other side here. We made some links. This could be another, I'm not gonna like redo this same thing all over again. Maybe I'll just copy and paste for now. But grouping does help. So if you right click, group, okay. The shortcut is Command G. I'm going to keep this all together here like that. Try it again. So group selection, okay. And then this becomes a whole group I can utilize back and forth. It's easier when you have groups because then you can literally recreate these more complex, detailed areas with less effort. Because once you make one, you can easily go option drag, and here's your other one, back and forth, right? This becomes the other group right now. And yes, my favorite, ready? Step and repeat. Look, Command D, it does the same thing. So you can keep doing it, Command D, to duplicate as many things as you want. It's a nice little Illustrator attribute. Okay. I'm going to quickly make these a little different right now. So perhaps I'm going to select this group here. But see, to select the content in the group, just like Illustrator, you have to double click, which is called the isolation mode. So if I double click here, now I'm accessing the actual area of the group. If I double click again, then it gives me the actual fill attributes and stuff like that. So I'm going to go ahead and change this color here quickly. Even the image, right? If I double click on the image, I can then go ahead and click on the image here and replace it with a different image just by simply using like my template approach. So for that one, I'll just use I gotta remember I can't use my AVI files. I've got to go to the desktop. I'm going to use this file over here, right? And then going over to the third image on the right, same thing, double click, right? And this image is going to be something else, right? Same thing with other areas and attributes. You have to click, double click, click on different parts. Right? So details are important, okay? Especially when you make these things. Now, in this bottom rectangle here, I want to do something different just to kind of elevate this approach. So in this case, what I'm going to create is create this into a, and I can make this longer. Like, don't think this website, if this is page 2, or this is my wireframe, and this is my, good draft version, you're not stuck with this size. You can easily go ahead and do this. Look, you can stretch it out to make a longer type of website, right? So you can easily extend the frame vertically to add more space. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, so I'm just gonna do that for now. I took the liberty to make more space. I'm gonna move this a little lower, perhaps give it more space, maybe make this a little bigger as well. So I can show you some more advanced features that you can use in this box over here. Okay. So it's easily modifiable, and you can definitely do a lot of cool things with just by, using your very basic knowledge of any software. Okay. Well, this is a very simple rectangle, and I got to be very mindful of what I'm selecting because, trust me, I make all kinds of mistakes sometimes when I do this layout stuff. Something happened here. Okay. Speaking of something happening, my like button just disappeared. I don't know if because I closed the icon set or something happened. Let me just quickly do a reset here. Weird. Right. Try this again. Ah, it's moving along with that. No problem. I'm gonna extract these buttons and do a better one anyways with you. So I'm just gonna do this, right click and cut, delete, and delete. Okay, that's okay. I don't want to limit myself to those little buttons. I'll definitely get in some more interactive stuff with you in a moment. Just to kind of follow this up here, I'm gonna move this down, move this over here. Okay. So this bottom rectangle here, if you notice, it's a simple design element, and I took shape of I did a linear like fill on it. Of course, you can replace that with an image. Let me just show you the gradients quickly. How nice they are. You could control, see the gradients here. It's a pretty cool little feature. Again, I'm going to reference Illustrator. Looks like the gradient annotator tool. So you could use different areas like this to slide things, right? Now, why is this important? Well, you might want to do an effect that you don't want to go to Photoshop and save it, go back to Figma. So this could be like a mask or a screen effect on an image, right? So to do something like that, for example, what I'm going to do here is simple, leave this alone as is and bring in an image in there and use this, let's call it like a layer blend mode attribute in Figma, okay? So in order for that to take place, I'm going to duplicate another copy of this rectangle. Better yet, I'm going to go ahead and place an image in there instead. So I'm going to go just select this, very simple. Command D. I don't know if you notice when I do Command D, look what happened. It duplicated the same object in the same place. Now there's an exception to that. If I was to move it over to the right and I press Command D, it's going to repeat the same function to the right again and again, like step and repeat does. But when I do it this way, it just made a copy of that rectangle over here. Which one was this one? Number 7. This is number 8. The reason why I'm doing this is to simply go to number 7, which is the one behind it, and change this to become an image instead. I'm going to use this image here. Right? So look, this is in front of that. Okay. So because you have a gradient on top of an image, you can then use what's called this. Look, darken, multiply. You get all these cool blend features. So you can have a better type of effect with your design. Okay. So you can do, from all of them that you're familiar with in Photoshop, you can do a lot of cool things. So maybe I'll go with darken and just leave it as like a background drop and maybe put some other elements in there. Okay. And all that took was a screen effect with an image on top to make this possible. And that could be like my background design for what's next to come. And what's next to come is maybe some other elements I want to incorporate in there, maybe some text, some images, some more buttons, whatever you see on a website, videos, images, and text. Now, you got to be very careful when you do this next part because you're going to have to really pay attention to what you're selecting here. For example, right now you have this whole section is part of this main page wireframe. This other one is called main page wireframe as well. Why am I having the same name twice? So I'm going to call this one here full rendered version, okay? Or prototype, full render prototype. Okay? Because now I can distinguish the two different artboards. If you ever wonder what's on the bottom of a website, you can look at any website and see the disclaimer. You can see the actual the footer area. And this is what a lot of websites have usually. Okay, so just be mindful of that and make sure you put whatever you put here. It goes along with that type of quality of content. For now, I'm just going to put some copyright stuff here very quickly. And again, you can draw a text box or just click. You're not doing a website for me in this class. My students I used to make them do a prototype of the portfolio. It was too redundant. Remember I told you, like they were doing portfolios for their, for page layout class, you have a portfolio class, and you have a website class, right? So I don't want you to do another portfolio for me in this class. It was getting way too repetitive. So we had a meeting with all the instructors. Said, listen, I'm going to switch it up a bit. Let them have some more fun. Let them do some other stuff because they are doing a portfolio and they're doing a portfolio night. So I know you're doing like a layout. This is just to help you familiarize yourself with the software, but you're not going to do a full portfolio. So don't think you're doing that. Okay. Just a simple layout design with a UI kit in Figma to get more familiar. But speaking of which, copyright. You should always put your copyright in there. It won't prevent people to take your stuff, but it just looks like you are paying attention to your own content. Okay, so I'm going to put this right over here at the bottom, and this will be maybe your copyright signal there. Now here comes the fun stuff. Okay, so this is when I have to create. Let me like lock this up. So these are two individual things. I want you to notice what I'm doing here. There's a gradient mask, okay, and there's an image. And this is all placed in that location. So first thing I need to do is maybe lock these so nothing changes. So I'm just gonna right click, maybe group them for now. The quickest way to organize, it's content organization, okay? So you're organizing all these different content areas for your own doing, okay? But let me just try something really quickly before we move on to the next part. I'm gonna make a text box over here. I'll use my Lorem Ipsum plugin to fill in that area with some text. And you can use another screen, right? Like it's hard to read images in front of text. So you guys know the screen method. You put a white screen or a dark screen, and that makes the text more legible. So in this case, I'll do the Lorem Ipsum plugin here. What do I want to generate? Oh, it's asking me to select a text box. And there it is. And yes, you can copy and paste. Right? Another one. Another one. Okay, that's a little too much, but that's fine. Okay, so this is some of the text that we're going to have. How do you make this more legible? You put the screen, you can go black, dark to light, light to dark. I like to use a very simple method of implementing like a box element here. Gonna put a simple rectangle right like that behind it. And be careful because this is right underneath, so you can just kind of drag and drop. And this rectangle that I have, I'm gonna simply run like an actual opacity. Perhaps I'll do a 50% opacity so you can read right through it. And right away you can see clearly now how your text is visible. I have some content here that you can read. You should also group your elements as well so you know it's together. Because if you don't, it's going to do this on you too, right? You can control that. So I am going to right click group selection. And I'm going to put on some dummy objects to demonstrate this next part. So perhaps I'll do another rectangle over here. Maybe I'll do a circle or something. Here I'm going to put an image also, just to show you how there's different ways you can place images in different containers, just like you would in any other layout program. So this will be an image. Maybe not as visible, eh? There we go. That's more visible. And this one, I'm going to switch it with the other one. So they don't conflict with each other. I like to keep things a little separate. Okay. So I have the image here. I'm also going to give it a stroke. A stroke is an outside border element, of course, just to make it quite noticeable. I will make it white. And to increase the stroke weight property, of course, you go down here, just like anything else. You can give it different point stroke amounts. I'll move this over here. So I got a text box and an image side by side. And this is like an actual background that's housing them all together. You might have more complex layouts and designs. The point is, if you select multiple objects like this one, and if you right click and you do what's called frame selection, it creates those groups of items that you're selecting in like a group, but a special group. It's called a frame group. So what happens there is now you're creating a frame selection of your desired target. Now, what that means is you can create what's called an auto layout, okay? This is what the auto layouts gets tricky. You can only have auto layout available if you have a frame selection, like I did with these two objects. You can alternatively make a frame from scratch and put objects in the frame. Maybe I'll do like a simpler example to kind of demonstrate this, but in a more practical sense, I want to show you here. So what that means is this option becomes available, like you didn't have enough options to begin with. You do have constraints, you do have positions, wraps, margins, areas, padding, stuff like that, right? It doesn't get too technical, but as long as you kind of take it in small strides and try to understand how it works, it's nothing too complicated. Right? So what that means is now you have this set up like this. You have middle, you have right, so different sets. The default is this one here. If it's set up on this auto layout, horizontal layout, that means everything that you're going to have here is going to go over to the horizontal layout, right? It constrains itself to that area. If I choose to this one here, it's called a wrap. If you do a wrap layout, what happens is then your layouts do this kind of stuff. So if you have more complicated designs, you could actually create your own auto layout based on that particular attribute. And if you have a vertical one, okay, that'll just make all the layouts vertical from one another. So you can do a vertical layout, a horizontal layout, or a wrap layout, okay? So I'm gonna do stick to the horizontal layout, okay? And this can really benefit you in creating more complex layout designs. As this is as simple as I can keep it, but just to expand a little more, can you imagine you had more elements in there? Let me like bring those boxes in here. I don't know if it's gonna work because I have all kinds of layers right now. But if I was to decide to move these in here and see how advanced this could get. So in order for me to demonstrate that, I'm just gonna keep this here. I'm gonna demonstrate this on a separate frame over here. Okay. So just to show you how this works, I'll create another frame. So if you don't want a frame selection from the existing selection that you made, you can just make a frame separately or put a frame inside a frame. What we have here, okay, is a frame inside a frame. So this is a frame, and this whole thing is a frame as well. Yeah, so you have two frames. When you do have a frame into an auto layout selection, the icon changes. So you have it looking like this. It's got like three lines. And based on how it's configured, you might have a similar kind of little visual icon. So just to better demonstrate that in a simple fashion, I'm gonna use this frame here to demonstrate how, advantageous this feature is. This is new feature. It came out in 2024 to be exact, maybe 23. It's to help more layout designers have more control over their layout because people were getting too, I guess, confused with the way some of the objects were working, because you can see how confusing this could get already. Can you imagine looking at someone else's project, right? If it's your own, you kind of understand where things are. But if you look at somebody else's work, you can almost keep track of everything. But it's easy once you read what they are. Like look, that's a button, that's a group, that's a type tool, that's an image. Okay, that's a rectangle. Like you can easily identify what each of these attributes are. Okay, so that's one way to keep track of it. The other one is I'm going to show you here. Here's a frame. Okay, so inside this frame, I'm going to draw like some shapes just to keep it simple. So I'll draw a circle. This could be like an image, could be a box, whatever, right? I'm going to draw polygon, right? Change the color of it to something else. Okay. And I'm going to draw a rectangle, okay? So circle, triangle, rectangle, and you get the idea. I can draw, more shapes if I want. Maybe I'll draw a line tool as well, just to show you even other elements work as well. So a line tool, here's my stroke. I'm going to go up to perhaps 10 points. But don't forget, when you have these other tools, even the line, the stroke, I know I showed you how to corner objects and stuff using your corner radius. With like strokes and lines, you do have, first you can control the center, the outside and inside. You do control what's called the butt caps. You can make a round, you can make a square. You can also put arrows and stuff. So if you do an arrow here like this and like that, you can control arrows. If you want to do like diagrams and things like that, you can control that. All right, so I'll just maybe make it look like a double directional arrow if I like, right? So what I have here is a frame with all these different ingredients inside. It's like a container, right? So what I'm going to do now is basically use my auto layout grid function, okay? So if I click on this thing here, this little plus button, okay? It converted this into a, oops, sorry, I think I did the grid there by accident. The auto layout button here, right? And by default again, it says next time try the squiggly shift A command, right? Got it. So basically this now became an auto layout, right? So everything here is auto laid out. As you notice, there's this is your margin, okay? So you can control your margins here. This is your top margin, or it's called vertical padding. You can also do horizontal padding, okay, like this. I'll bring this back down again. If you want to create like a layout and design separately in a frame and then put in your artboard, you could. So this is how one way to do it. A clip content, just to kind of revise all these basic terminology. This means that whatever is outside, it will preview the actual edges of the content. So if this is non-existent and I do this, right? Oh, I can't demonstrate it because I'm doing auto layout. So let's not jump the gun here. Let's leave that alone. Don't worry about clip content. That's for like masking your artboard. So let's stick with the auto layout function here. By default, this is set up. Okay, it's called a wrap. If you don't want that, you can just go horizontal. You can go vertical, horizontal, just like to better demonstrate this example here. I think it's better if I use multiple objects. So because it's vertical, that's exactly what's going to happen here. Okay. Notice how they're all stuck in their own parameters. That's how it's called like a sticky attribute. If you do increase that amount here, like auto, okay? Auto means they'll expand evenly based on the vertical and horizontal baseline, like top and bottom. So you can use the auto function. You can also control like padding and stuff, numbers. I'll make them horizontal now. So vertical, horizontal. You can also do wrap. Okay, what wrap does is basically wraps them all together like this. Okay, does this remind you of something? Like CSS, right? Because your websites and stuff in code, this kind of follows a similar attribute. So if you find this useful, use it. Personally, if you think it's a little too much and you don't want to integrate, you don't have to. It's a new feature that came out. I thought it'd be cool to explain how it works with again, it's called the auto layout feature in Figma. Okay, and then you have middle, bottom. You can control the different alignments of the objects. Okay, and that's it. So there's all your features here. Okay, so I did integrate it in this example. I just want to show you in a more simplistic way how it works. So I use those colors and stuff. So I'm going to delete it now. Okay. All right. Now let's make some more interactive stuff. Now that we covered all the layout functionality and all the important things with design, let's see how we can incorporate more interactive things with buttons and things. So what I'm going to do is maybe make like another copy of a website and just show you how links work. Then after the links, I'll show you how to make the rollovers and things. Maybe I can do both actually. Want to cover a break first? Yeah, let's cover a break first. I'll stop the video. I'll do the next recording on the actual interactive approach, and then we'll take it from there. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing my screen and stop my recording for now. And this is part one of part two with the recordings. See you when I come back.